Hello, this is Shane with Radical Rocks. Today we're going to be talking about stabilizing stones. Sometimes you get certain rocks and the hardness is real good, the quality is real good, and other times, like last week I showed you this turquoise here. It's a really good turquoise, it's natural turquoise, and it doesn't need any hardness because it is going to be about a 5 on the hardness scale. Okay. But when you get rocks and gems that are not that hard, it could require hardening. So for example, I have one right here that is a little bit softer, and this is chrysocolla. A lot of times chrysocolla is only going to be 3.5 on the hardness scale. Also, you might have seen some of this beautiful rock that I have here. I'll get it wet so you can kind of see. This is a bitrudal azurite, and it's not that hard because these are just bubbles that have been created from dripping on top of each other that were laden with azurite and just were able to form in these bubbles. So if they had been continuous, like tubes, like within agate and jasper and things like that, and sometimes with these type of stones here, it could have been stronger possibly, but it's just not super strong. So the other reason you would want to do a hardness on your stone is because maybe it needs a fracture repair. It has a crack or a fracture in it, and it's a really nice stone, but you're worried about that big crack in the middle, and you want to heal that up so that the stone is strong, and maybe it improves it a little bit more visually. So how do you do that? There's different ways of doing it. For turquoise, for example, the professionals use a technique called the Zachary method. This is how a lot of turquoise is treated. The American Southwest turquoise that is of a little bit softer. It's still pretty. It's still got good color, but they will use the Zachary treatment where they use pressure and hardeners to give the stone a harder finish so that you can polish it and grind it and you don't have to worry about it chipping or flaking or cracking. Okay, and then sometimes they use it on really cheap powdery turquoise as well, but they usually use a dye when they do that. I'm not into the dyed. I think the hardener is fine because it is such a limited supply of beautiful turquoise for Southwest. And like I showed you, I have quite a bit of nice turquoise here from the Ikata Peak. And it has this quartz in it. It's real beautiful, but it's just not quite too hard where the two meet together, where the turquoise and the quartz meet together. It can be kind of crumbly, so I'm thinking I definitely have a piece I'm going to use some hardener. So what we'll do today is we will talk about the method I use, and I'll put a link if you want to get some of this Opti-con. It is readily available from different sources, but I'll put a link in the video if you want to go to our affiliate link and get some. But I'm going to go through step by step how I've used this successfully over the last 25 plus years or so. Okay. All right, for the next step, you'll want to make sure you have all your proper PPE, which is your personal protective equipment. You'll want to make sure that if your stones were cut with oil, that they have been dried, and that you have removed every single bit of oil that you can from them, okay? And what you'll want to do is you can use a lacquer thinner to clean the oil off. Also, a brush is always helpful. And then allow them to dry. Always use your proper PPE. I've got a pair of safety glasses here so I don't spray it in my eye. And I have a set of gloves here that you can get at Harbor Freight or any one of these supply places. And then once they dry from the lacquer cleaner and you've ensured that you have all the oil off, you will want to use acetone. Okay, this sometimes is found in fingernail polish remover. Sometimes it doesn't have acetone in it, but I would recommend just going down to your local hardware store, getting some acetone, and get a nice little plastic container here, and put some in there. And then, by the way, if you have like some left, it's not too dirty, you can always reuse this. Now these stones that I have here were not soaked in oil or anything, but get a little paintbrush and you know, let it soak in real good. This opens up the pores so that when we do give it our hardness treatment, our stabilizing treatment, it will be good. Always make sure that you've cleaned the sides of the stone, the edges, and by the way, this is for slabs. This is primarily for slabs. So now, guys, if you appreciate this, our content, you know, the educational content that we supply, the entertaining content that we supply, remember, Radical Rocks, we are education first, we are community first, we're all about preserving rockhounding and lapidary for future generations. So please go to our blog, which is at radicalrocks.blogspot. Or it's radicalrocksusa.blogspot.com. All our links and social media can be found. You can join our Facebook for free, and like and subscribe and share, guys, because you know we're on a mission, and we're trying to get as many members and views and likes and shares as we can, because we're contributing back into the hobby of rockhounding for educational purposes. So you can be a part of that without spending a dime, just by watching these videos and sharing them and liking them and giving comments. All that helps. So let these things soak. I would let them soak for about an hour or so, and then make sure they dry thoroughly. And we're going to go into the next step of this, but make sure that they have soaked very good in this acetone, because that opens up the pores for the next process. All right, for our next step, we've let these dry, and what we do is we take the Opti-con fracture sealer, the resin. It's number 224. It's a two-part kit. It has the resin and then it has the hardener. And then what we do is we can pour this into a container, and then it's kind of like honey, just dumps in there. Now this process here, you can actually reuse some of this. So what you do is you need to have like a pie pan or something to put these on, and I have one right here that I've used on some other stuff, and you just take this stuff here and coat it on there, okay, and just place it on the metal with a coating on each side, okay. Get it all around the sides and everything, okay, around here. Just rub it on there. This, you don't have to be too super neat with this. You can wipe a lot of this off. It just doesn't have to be a super thick layer, because you can reuse any of this that you want. Now if you're just doing a fracture healing, I would just go ahead and try to coat, if it's already a finished cabochon where it's already been, you know, cabbed out, and you're trying to fix an existing fracture in it, I would just rub this. I would treat the crack with the acetone and just rub this into the crack, but try to leave a layer up over the crack, because the next process that we have, we're going to try, and by the way, all this stuff, whatever you can get back out of this, you can salvage. You can keep this and reuse this. Okay, I'm going to take these gloves off, but yeah, if you just have a fracture, you can just treat that one little area. If you're going to do the slabs, I would say coat it all over the sides, the front, the back, the whole thing. Okay, now at this point, what you want to do is you want to take these stones and you want to heat them up to about 150 degrees for about an hour, okay? And the way you can do that is you can use a heat lamp. Make sure it's in a place that's safe. It's not going to catch on fire, maybe on a concrete floor, and put a lamp over it, like a 150 watt bulb. Shine it on it, and you'll feel it's going to get warm. Or if you have an oven, don't put it anywhere near a direct flame, but you can put it in an oven at 150 degrees and heat it up. Of course, never put it in a microwave or anything like that. That would be foolish. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and treat some of this material, and then we'll come into the next step of our hardness treatment. So now these are some that I've already treated with 150 degrees for an hour. You can see the materials got in pretty good. You actually can wipe all this off, and any of the material that's left from the resin, you can squeegee that and put it back into the bottle and reuse it at a later time if you want. So that helps you save some money. If you cleaned your stone really good, it should look exactly the way it was, kind of like a clear honey. Now the next process, what we're going to do is we're going to do about 10 to 1. 8 to 1 to 10 to 1 is the suggested mix on this. I just kind of eyeball it. There's that right there. And then here's the hardener. And this one's brand new. I haven't even opened it yet, for the hardener anyway. Okay. And then just a little dab will do you. That's probably a little too much. I like the hardener to be sure and use plenty of hardener. Let me put the lid back on this so I don't lose it. The hardener will go bad before the resin does, by the way. So you just mix it up real good. Something plastic like this is good. Now this material here you will not be able to reuse, so try not to mix up any more than you have to, but probably would be good to wear gloves for this. But what I like to do, the instructions say let it sit for 15 minutes or so at room temperature, and I like to let it sit for about 15 minutes at room temperature, and then I turn the oven on very, very low as it'll go, like 100, 125. No, definitely not over 150. And I go ahead and treat it that way. And this coating here doesn't need to be as thick as your first coating, because this is going to stick. In fact, if you leave it too thick, it'll look real glassy, you know. So I would just say rub it in real good on here. You can use a paintbrush if you want. I have a mustache brush here. Here it is. This works really well. A little brush like this, and you can actually just kind of work it in to the material like so. And probably should be wearing gloves. I forgot to grab them before I turn the camera on, but they're kind of sticky. And now you can use the excess chemical that we were using earlier, the acetone, to and you want to get both sides of your stone with this hardener. Okay. And use a metal, something metal that you know, that you don't care about. Doesn't matter if you reuse it again. And don't just put thick globs on this, because if you do that, you're gonna be not happy about the results, because it will look really bad. So that's kind of an end piece right there, but get it all over. Definitely wear some disposable gloves. Like I said, I just kind of forgot to grab them before I turn the camera on. There's a warning on the container too, so you can follow the instructions better than I have. Now when I put these in the oven, I typically will leave them for like about a half hour on each side. And this stuff typically does not just get hard right away. when you do it. So we'll see how this works, but that's been my experience, is it takes it a while to get hard. Okay. Very good. Okay, you can see I've completely treated all the stones, so I'll do a little cleanup on my hands, and then you could just wait the 15 minutes to an hour and let it cure like that, but it's still going to take a long time before they get really hard. So we'll get into that in a little bit, in the next little. Okay, so again, you don't have to do it this way, but this is the way I do it. You just get your oven, and I'm going to turn this on at the lowest, absolute lowest setting, and just put that in there. Voila. I'll come back and check it in about a half hour. Okay, I took these out of the oven. I was going to show you, but my kids are just having too much fun, screaming and yelling. But you can see that it's kind of got a glossy edge to it. Now that's more glossy than it's going to look like once it's polished, or, you know, cabbed out. But you'll notice that these will stick pretty hard, so you'll probably want to get something that you can flex a little bit, because if you can flex it, then this stuff will come off easier. I don't know if you can hear that, but okay. So now that comes off a lot easier, like so. Okay, there's that one. So a pie pan is not always your best friend. What this is just the top of like a Christmas cookies, the cheap cookies like what you get at Walmart, and it gives you more flexibility to be able to pop them off. Now if you get something messed up like this, you can always redo it, but it's basically the hardener is in there, so it's pretty good. I don't think there's going to be an issue. There's a little bit of area here, it's a little tacky, but it will cure in time by itself. But I do like to put it in the oven and kind of speed it up a little bit, make it a little harder. And if they're still sticky, then you haven't given enough time yet to harden, or maybe you didn't mix enough hardener in there. That can also affect it. But these are ready now to be cabbed out, and I will probably do that in the next week or so. So this will conclude this this episode of Radical Rocks. Remember, please take a look at our blog at radicalrocksusa.blogspot.com. And remember, rockhounds don't die, they petrify.